everyone, John McClellan here with ATX Hot Sauce. That's atxhotsauce.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a fermented hot sauce, and today we're making the red scorpion. What's the secret to a great hot sauce, a great fermented hot sauce? Well, great peppers and great vegetables to put in it. Let me tell you what we're putting in this red scorpion today. We got red Fresnos, scorpion peppers, one of the hottest peppers in the world, some sweet peppers, green bell pepper, cardamom, turmeric, and ginger. We have a beet, some dried ancho chilies, and we're going to top it off with a yellow onion. And we're going to do about a 3% brine. Now let's show you how to make it. First of all, we've got a gallon jar right here that we're going to use for the fermentation. I've cleaned and sanitized this, and we've got this lovely little lid right here that lets all the vegetables flow in without getting anything on the side there. One of the things you got to worry about with fermented hot sauces is mold on the top. So that's why we've cleaned, we've sanitized, and we're doing everything we can to keep some of the vegetables that won't be sitting in the brine away from the edge of the glass container here. So one of the first things I like to put in is our beet. Now, why do we use a beet? Well, this red scorpion sauce, it's red, right? I want it to be a real deep, luscious looking red. So we're gonna add some beet to the bottom of the fermentation. It's more like a coloring, like a natural food coloring. Adds a little bit of sweetness to it, but really what we're looking for is that deep, dark red color in the sauce itself. So we want to chop this up. Now I peeled this ahead of time. One of the things you want to watch out for is beets get really messy, right? They turn everything red. So that's the first one we're going to cut up here. We're just going to do it into probably maybe eighths. And we're going to put those right at the bottom. Next thing, some dried ancho chilies. These things add a smokiness to it, a little bit more darker, rich color too. We're just going to take the stems off right here. And remember, you can use dried peppers, but they're not going to start a fermentation. But with all these other fresh vegetables in here, definitely get that fermentation started. Going to take the top off that, get rid of that. Boom, we've got that all done there. Now, one of the things I love to do is composting. So any of these vegetables, stuff you don't use, we're going to throw that into our compost here. As you can see, we've got a lot of seeds here. Get rid of those too. All right. Next, we got turmeric that I've freshly peeled, and a little bit of ginger that I freshly peeled too. We're just going to give this a rough chop, and we're going to give this one a rough chop too, and add that to our fermentation right over here. Pretty simple recipe. One of the other things I like to add is sweet red peppers. These sweet peppers, you can get them in any grocery store. They're fantastic. We're going to use about half of this bell pepper. These sweet peppers and this bell pepper is really going to accent the flavor on our two hot peppers we have today, which is the scorpion and the red Fresno peppers, which we're going to show you here in just a minute. Now, let's go ahead and add this to the bottom. This is a little trick I've learned. You take the bottom off of any kind of pepper, and you just slice like this. There we go. Get all those seeds out, no more digging it all out. Do a rough chop on this too. I'm probably only gonna use about half the bell pepper though. We don't want too much bell pepper coming through. Don't want it to control the sauce. And we'll use about half of this. Get that in there, and we're gonna put this aside because probably use it in another dish later. These are one of the hottest peppers in the world. Used to be the hottest pepper in the world until it was replaced by, yep, you guessed it, the Carolina Reaper. Still extremely hot, gorgeous to look at. By the way, gloves are your friends here. So one of the things we don't have to do is cut this off. You can just peel these right off, and we're gonna do that real quick here. All right, now what do you do with the peppers? A lot of people like to chop them up real fine. I find that if you have a ton of peppers, if you do this, it'll make more room inside there, but I think we're gonna be just fine. I'll probably just cut these in quarters. We just really wanna open the pepper up so it has an ability to get that brine inside there and start that fermentation a little bit quicker. Another thing you wanna be careful about, if you have some leftovers and you decide to, say that these right here, and you decide to put it in the disposal and run it with a little bit of hot water, be careful. Basically what you're doing is creating a nuclear weapon that's going off in your kitchen, and let's put it this way, your eyes, your nose, and your lungs will not appreciate you very much. As you can tell, this is going to be a very spicy sauce here. Now, one of the things that we're not adding into this batch of fermentation this time is the garlic, which we're going to add after fermentation when we make the sauce. And I like to put a couple of fresh apricots that are brined. But I brine my apricots separately, and I'll add them to this brine when we're actually making the sauce itself, which, by the way, is in part 2. All right, now what's next? We're going to add the red Fresno chilies. I really like these chilies. They're obviously not as hot as these scorpion peppers, but they do add just a little bit fresher, sweeter taste. A little bit hotter than jalapenos. They're one of my favorite peppers. I use it for our sriracha sauce. I use it for our sauce called the Big Red, which is basically just red bell peppers and Fresnos, and it makes for a good hot sauce, for a good buffalo sauce too. By the way, we used about 14 ounces of the scorpion peppers. So let's go ahead and add some of these fresh sweet ones in here. I want to make sure I have enough room for that. We're going to stick with the darker colored ones. Make sure when you're using these, you choose ones that have the skin is very firm. You don't want a slimy or overripe sweet pepper to go in there. You can worry about a little mold or something. So use the most freshest peppers you can with real firm skins on them. Now, the scorpion peppers have a real thin membrane. The Fresnos have a real thick one. So that's when we go to make this sauce, we're gonna have to do some extra blending to get that a little bit smoother. If it was just a habanero or just the scorpion peppers with those real thin skins, we could get away with less blending. But this one, we're gonna make it, we're gonna have to blend a little bit more because of that. All right, that's good on the sweet peppers. All right, we got some cardamom seeds here. We're gonna add those in. And that's pretty much it. In fact, I think I can probably add in a little bit more of the peppers. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend getting one. Yep, definitely have room to add some more. All right, that looks like a good amount of peppers in there. Flip this side here, press it down. Now, last ingredient, the onion. Then we'll add the brine to it. I like to make the onion as kind of a cap. It helps with the mold issues you may be having. It's one of the great things to do. So you just cut it in circles. We're gonna place it in there. Then we'll place the fermentation weight right on top of it. Look at that. Perfect fit of that onion right on top. We're gonna place the fermentation weight here on it after we do our brine. All right, let's make the brine. Very simple. I'm gonna give you some little tips and hints on how to do it so you can do it multiple times without having to do all this weighing. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we need to weigh this glass because we're gonna weigh the water that's in the glass. So we gotta take the weight of the glass off there. So we're gonna zero out our scale here. We're gonna measure in grams, and this weighs about 653 grams to be exact. Now, one of the things I like to do just for speed's sake next time is I'm gonna write 653 right here on the jar, all right? That way next time you can just subtract it from the water. All right, so now we're gonna fill this up and weigh the water. All right, we got our jar full with water right now. And here's another little trick for you. So take a marker, a little Sharpie, find out where that line of water is, and we're gonna make a mark right here. Now we're gonna weigh this to see how much this all weighs minus the 653, and then we're gonna put the weight of the water right here because the weight of the water is gonna be constant, at least at this elevation, right? And we can just write the number here. That way next time we just fill it up to here, we know exactly how much salt to add. So let's weigh this puppy. So that's 2,299 grams. We're gonna call it 2,300 grams. Now we've got to subtract this 653. That leaves us with 1,647 grams of water in this jar. So we're gonna take right here, we're gonna write 16 47. So next time, without having to weigh this, we can just fill it to this line and know that we have 1,647 grams of water in here. Now, next we have to do another calculation. You ready? 3% of 1,647. What's 3% of 1,647? You take a calculator out, you do 1,647 times 0.03, which gives you 49 grams, right? We'll knock it up to, let's call it 50 grams. So next thing we want to do is we need to weigh the salt. So that's how much salt we have to put in there. So that's 50 grams of salt. Put our little thing on here too, zero this out. Now salt is really, really important. I like this sea salt, this Mediterranean sea salt here. It's really, really good. Don't use iodized salt. Iodized salt, it won't work. Sea salt, kosher salt, things like that, pickling sauce, salt, those will work. Not iodine salt, that will not work. It's not even really salt to begin with. So we're gonna measure 50 grams. I love this because it comes in a little bag that allows you to pour it in. All right, there we go. 49 grams is what we've done here, which will give us a 3% brine for this. Now, don't use hot water. I just use water, just lukewarm room temperature water when I'm doing this. We're gonna put all the salt in there, right? And then we're gonna stir it up, and we gotta wait for all those crystals to, that water to absorb all that salt, so it's a little bit more clear before we pour it in there. All right, next we're going to combine the brine into our lovely vegetables here. Be careful, I tend to get it everywhere. Looks like I'm getting the majority in the jar. Now I like to use that Himalayan salt, sea salt. If you notice, there are little impurities that are caught at the bottom. Try not to add those in. We're going to wash this out. Now the good thing is, well, first of all, I don't have enough brine in here because you're going to have all your vegetables submerged inside the brine. That prevents mold growth. Anything sitting above it could get moldy, right? Everything's looking good. I left a little bit of room because we're going to put a fermentation weight on top of this. It's going to push down on it, and that brine's going to come up. So I've cleaned and sanitized these things too. It's a little star sand. I'm going to place that right there. As you can see, when the lid goes on, it's going to push it up just a little bit. You don't want a lot of headspace in there, but the oxygen can be, it promotes mold growth. I've also sanitized this with some star sand too. We're going to put that right on the top. Okay, tight. I've got an airlock here. We put some sanitizer in that too. I'm going to fill this up with a liquid, probably a little bit of vodka in there. Some people put more brine. You can do whatever you want. I like to put a little vodka just as an airlock. Keeps all the nasties out, and we'll have a lid when that goes on there. Now, one of the things I want to talk about too is one of my favorite things, and that's my book. This is my book of sauces, and these are all the batches that I've made. And I believe we may actually be on a little precipice here. The last batch I did was number 99. We did a red habanero brine, habaneros and bell peppers, and pepper in it too. We're doing a habanero pepper one that should be fermenting right now. So what I like to do is take this, and I'll write 100. This will be batch 100. Congratulations to us, right? Batch 100, and I'll put all my ingredients in here. As you can see, we've got pages and pages of it. One of the things we realize is that after a month, 2 months, or 3 months or longer of fermentation, you don't really remember what you put into it. So keeping this book as a handy guide for when you make that perfect batch, you can recreate it in the future. Now, when we turn this into a sauce, which is in part 2, we'll go back to that 100. And we'll write everything that we put into it. If we add vinegar to it, if we add apple cider vinegar to it, if we add a roasted garlic or some other things, we'll actually add that right next to the batch 100 as the sauce itself. That'll be batch 100 sauce when this one's ready. Another thing you want to do is label. So I like to label with the batch number, the date, and what it is. With this one's the Red Scorpion, and this is the Red Scorpion XXX, by the way. You can probably tell by all the scorpion peppers we put into it. So number 100, woohoo! And we'll put today's date on here. and we'll take the masking tape off and we're gonna put it right on there. I need to dry the jar off. Anyway, that's how you do it. We're gonna go put this in a cool, dark area so it can ferment here over the next couple of months, and then we can make that red scorpion sauce, which is part 2.